Hey everyone, welcome to Midnight Mystic Stories. I noticed a lot of you who are watching and enjoying the content aren't subscribed yet. If you love spine-chilling stories, creepy encounters, and unexplained mysteries, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. It really helps the channel grow and helps us keep bringing more of the content you love. And be sure to comment below where you are tuning in from. Thank you and enjoy the video. That night. It's etched into my memory like a bad tattoo, faded but permanent. I try not to think about it, but sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet and the shadows are long, it creeps back in. It all started with a Hinge match, of course. Where else do these things start these days? I was, and still am, a hopeless romantic with a healthy dose of skepticism. I knew the odds were stacked against me. That finding a genuine connection on a dating app was like finding a needle in a haystack made of thirst traps and ghosting experts. But I kept swiping, kept hoping. Then I saw his profile. Liam. Tall, dark hair, a smile that looked genuine, and a bio that actually showed some personality. He wasn't trying too hard, wasn't posing with a tiger or holding a dead fish. Just a few pictures of him hiking, reading, and hanging out with friends. He seemed normal, refreshingly so. We matched, and the conversation flowed easily. We talked about our favorite books, our travel dreams, and our shared love of dogs. He was witty, intelligent, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. After a week of chatting, we decided to meet up. He suggested a local brewery, a place I knew and liked. Casual, low pressure, perfect for a first date. I was cautiously optimistic. He seemed too good to be true, but I tried to push those thoughts aside. Maybe, just maybe, this could be something. The night of the date, I spent hours getting ready. I wanted to look nice, but not like I was trying too hard. I settled on a simple black dress, some comfortable boots, and a light jacket. I did my makeup carefully, trying to strike the balance between natural and presentable. As I looked in the mirror, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. What if he wasn't who he seemed to be? What if the conversation fizzled out in person? What if I completely embarrassed myself? I took a deep breath and told myself to relax, to just be myself and see what happened. When I arrived at the brewery, Liam was already there, waiting at a table. He stood up as I approached, and his smile was even more charming in person. He was taller than I expected, with kind eyes and a warm presence. We hugged, and I instantly felt a sense of ease. The date started off great. The conversation was even better in person than it had been online. We laughed, we shared stories, and we discovered even more things we had in common. He was attentive, respectful, and genuinely interested in what I had to say. I found myself relaxing and enjoying the moment, letting go of my anxieties and allowing myself to feel hopeful. After a few hours, the brewery started to empty out, and we were one of the last tables left. We decided to call a night, but neither of us seemed eager to end the date. As we walked out of the brewery, Liam suggested we go for a walk in the park nearby. It was a beautiful night. The air was crisp and clear, and the stars were shining brightly. I hesitated for a moment. It was late, and I didn't know him that well. But I also didn't want the night to end. I decided to trust my gut and say yes. The park was quiet and peaceful. The only sounds were the rustling of leaves and the distant hum of traffic. We walked along the path, talking and laughing, enjoying each other's company. As we reached a secluded area of the park, Liam stopped and turned to me. He looked into my eyes, and his expression became serious. "I had a really great time tonight," he said, his voice soft. "I feel like we have a real connection." I smiled, feeling a flutter of butterflies in my stomach. "I did too," I said. "I really enjoyed getting to know you." He took a step closer, and I could feel his breath on my face. "Can I kiss you?" he asked. I nodded, and he leaned in and kissed me. It was a perfect kiss, soft and tender, full of promise. I closed my eyes and savored the moment, feeling a sense of happiness and contentment. But then everything changed. As the kiss deepened, I felt Liam's hands move from my waist to my neck. At first, it felt sensual, but then his grip tightened. I tried to pull away, but he held me firmly in place. His kiss became more aggressive, more demanding. I started to feel uncomfortable, a sense of unease creeping into my mind. I tried to push him away again, but he wouldn't let go. His grip on my neck tightened even further, and I started to feel like I couldn't breathe. Panic set in. I realized that something was wrong, terribly wrong. This wasn't a romantic kiss. This was an attack. I struggled against him, kicking and scratching, trying to break free. But he was too strong. He pinned me against a tree, his hand squeezing my neck, cutting off my air supply. I gasped for breath, my vision starting to blur. I could feel my body weakening, my strength fading. I knew that if I didn't do something, I was going to die. With a surge of adrenaline, I managed to knee him in the groin. He cried out in pain and released his grip on my neck. I stumbled backward, gasping for air, my throat burning. I looked at him, and his face was contorted with rage. He lunged at me again, but I managed to dodge him and run. I ran as fast as I could, my lungs burning, my legs aching. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew that I had to get away from him. I could hear him chasing me, his footsteps pounding behind me. I ran through the park, desperately searching for anyone, who could help me. But the park was deserted, silent except for the sound of our footsteps. As I ran, I stumbled and fell, scraping my knees and hands. I tried to get up, but my legs were weak and shaky. Liam caught up to me and grabbed me by the hair, pulling me to my feet. "You can't escape me," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "I'm going to kill you." I screamed, but no one heard me. He dragged me back towards the secluded area of the park, his grip on my hair unrelenting. I knew that this was it, that I was going to die in this park, alone and terrified. But then, something unexpected happened. As Liam was dragging me, we passed by a group of teenagers who were hanging out near a picnic table. They saw what was happening and immediately jumped into action. They ran towards us, yelling and shouting, trying to scare Liam away. He hesitated for a moment, startled by their sudden appearance. I used that opportunity to break free from his grip and run towards the teenagers. They surrounded me, protecting me from Liam. He stood there for a moment, glaring at us, before finally turning and running away. The teenagers called the police, and they arrived within minutes. I told them everything that had happened, and they took me to the hospital. I was treated for my injuries, which included a bruised neck, scrapes, and cuts. The police launched an investigation, but they were never able to find Liam. He had disappeared without a trace. That night changed me forever. I'm afraid to go out alone, afraid to trust anyone. I have nightmares about Liam, about his hands on my neck, about his threat to kill me. I still use Hinge, but I'm much more cautious now. I always meet in public places, I always tell someone where I'm going, and I always have an escape plan. I know that not all men are like Liam, but I can't help but be wary. The events of that night will stay with me forever, a constant reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most seemingly normal people. It taught me a harsh lesson about the dangers of online dating and the importance of trusting my instincts. And it made me realize how fragile life can be, and how quickly everything can change. Okay, so this is about Hinge, and it's probably going to sound insane, but I swear on everything, this is a true story. It started like any other dating app tale. I'd been single for about a year after a pretty brutal breakup, and my friends were constantly nagging me to get back out there. Hinge seemed like the least terrifying option, you know? Slightly more curated than Tinder, supposedly geared towards relationships, whatever that means. I wasn't looking for anything serious, just someone to grab a drink with, maybe go on a hike, keep my mind off things. I matched with this guy, Liam. His profile was normal, maybe a little too normal. Picture of him hiking, picture of him at a brewery, picture of him with his dog. Basic, but not offensively so. His prompts were funny, self-deprecating. He seemed like a decent human being. We messaged back and forth for a few days, the usual getting-to-know-you stuff. Where we worked, what we did for fun, favorite pizza toppings. He passed the test with pepperoni and mushrooms. He seemed nice. Too nice, maybe? That's probably where my paranoia started creeping in. But I brushed it off. I hadn't had a decent date in months. We made plans to meet for coffee at a cafe near my apartment. He was exactly as he appeared in his photos, maybe even a little cuter in person. The date went well. We talked for hours, laughed a lot. He was attentive, asked good questions, and didn't try to steer the conversation towards anything weird. He even walked me home and didn't try to come up. Textbook perfect. I was cautiously optimistic. We went on a second date a few days later, then a third. Things were progressing at a steady, comfortable pace. He was always respectful, always considerate. He remembered little details I'd mentioned in passing. He even brought me flowers on our third date, which, okay, was a little cheesy, but I secretly loved it. I started to think, maybe this was it. Maybe I'd finally found a normal, decent guy who wasn't going to ghost me or turn out to be a secret axe murderer. That's when the little things started happening. Subtle things that I initially dismissed as coincidences or my own overactive imagination. The first thing I noticed was that he always seemed to know where I was. Not in a creepy, stalking kind of way, but in a way that was unsettling. Like, I'd mention I was going to a new yoga class, and the next day he'd casually ask if I liked the studio. Or I'd say I was grabbing lunch at a specific place, and he'd mention he'd heard good things about their sandwiches. It wasn't like he was following me, but it was like he had access to information he shouldn't have. I chalked it up to him being observant, maybe overhearing me talking to someone on the phone. Then there was the music. I'm a huge music person. I always have something playing, whether it's in my apartment or in my car. Liam and I had talked about music on our first date, and we seemed to have similar tastes. But after a few weeks, it started to feel like he was curating my playlists. I'd be listening to Spotify, and songs he'd mentioned liking would suddenly appear in my Discover Weekly or Daily Mix playlists. It was like the algorithm was being influenced by him, even though we weren't connected on Spotify. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it was happening. I started to wonder if he was somehow hacking my account. The creepiest thing, though, was the dreams. I started having these really vivid, unsettling dreams. They weren't nightmares, exactly, but they were disturbing. I'd be in familiar places, like my apartment or my childhood home, but everything would be slightly off. The colors would be too bright, the shadows too dark, and there would always be this sense of unease, like something was watching me. And Liam would be there, in the background, always smiling, but never saying anything. I started feeling paranoid. I was convinced Liam was somehow manipulating me, even though I couldn't explain how. I tried to talk to my friend about it, but they just told me I was being crazy. He sounds perfect, they'd say. You're just sabotaging yourself because you're afraid of getting hurt again. I wanted to believe them, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. One night, I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, when I heard a noise outside my window. I lived on the second floor, so it was unlikely to be someone just walking by. I got up and peeked through the blinds, and that's when I saw him. Liam was standing on the sidewalk below, staring up at my window. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there, perfectly still. The streetlights cast long shadows across his face, making him look almost demonic. I froze, paralyzed with fear. I watched him for what felt like an eternity. He didn't move, didn't blink, just kept staring. Finally, after what seemed like hours, he turned and walked away. I didn't sleep a wink that night. The next morning, I decided I needed to know what was going on. I needed to find out who Liam really was. I started digging. I started with the basics, social media. His Hinge profile was linked to his Instagram, which was pretty normal. Pictures of him with friends, pictures of his dog, pictures of him traveling. But something felt off. The pictures felt staged, like he was trying too hard to project a certain image. I tried searching for him on Facebook, but nothing came up. That was weird. Everyone has a Facebook account, right? I decided to take it a step further. I did a reverse image search on his Instagram photos. Most of them came back clean, but one of them led me to a website I wish I'd never found. It was a forum for, I don't even know what to call it. It was a place where people shared stories about their experiences with something supernatural, something dark. The photo that came up was of Liam, but it was older, maybe taken a few years ago. He was standing in front of a building I didn't recognize, and he was wearing a strange symbol around his neck. The caption read, "The Collector." I clicked on the link, and I was immediately bombarded with disturbing images and stories. People were talking about Liam, or someone who looked exactly like him, and they were saying things that made my blood run cold. They said he was a collector of souls, that he preyed on vulnerable people, people who were lonely or lost, and that he would slowly drain them of their life force. They said he was a master manipulator, that he could get inside your head and make you believe anything. They said he was ancient, that he'd been doing this for centuries. I know it sounds insane. I wanted to dismiss it as the ramblings of crazy people on the internet, but the more I read, the more convinced I became that it was true. It all started to make sense. The coincidences, the music, the dreams. He was manipulating me, slowly but surely, and I hadn't even realized it. I panicked. I knew I had to get away from him, but I didn't know how. He knew where I lived. He knew my routine. He was always one step ahead of me. I couldn't go to the police. They'd think I was crazy. I was on my own. I decided to disappear. I packed a bag, grabbed my passport, and booked a one-way ticket to Europe. I didn't tell anyone where I was going, not even my friends. I just left. I've been living in Europe for the past few months, bouncing from city to city, trying to stay one step ahead. I still have nightmares about Liam, about his smiling face and his empty eyes. I don't know if he's still looking for me, but I can't shake the feeling that he is. I'm constantly looking over my shoulder, afraid that I'll see him standing there, waiting for me. I know this story sounds crazy, but I swear it's true. I thought I was being paranoid, but I was right. Liam wasn't who he seemed to be. He was something else, and I was lucky to get out when I did. So, if you're using dating apps, be careful. You never know who's really on the other side of that screen. And sometimes, the most normal-seeming people are the ones you should be most afraid of. I thought I was being paranoid until I found the photos with the weird symbols. I thought I was being paranoid until I saw Liam outside my house, staring up at my window. I thought I was being paranoid until I realized that everything about him was a lie. I don't usually use dating apps like Hinge. I prefer meeting people organically, through friends, at a bar, maybe even awkwardly reaching for the same book at the library. But I was going through a dry spell, both romantically and socially. My friends were all coupled up or busy with their careers, and I was spending way too much time alone with my thoughts and a rapidly growing collection of houseplants. So, after a bit of prodding from my best friend, Sarah, I reluctantly downloaded Hinge. I set up a profile with a few carefully chosen photos, a witty bio about my love for obscure indie films and spicy food, and braced myself for the inevitable onslaught of generic messages and questionable profiles. To my surprise, it wasn't as bad as I expected. There were a few duds, of course, but also some genuinely interesting people. One of them was Liam. Liam's profile was refreshing. He wasn't posing shirtless in a gym mirror or holding up a dead fish, a disturbing trend I noticed among the male population of my city. His photos were candid, showing him laughing with friends, hiking in the mountains, and playing guitar at what looked like an open mic night. His prompts were thoughtful and funny, revealing a self-aware and slightly nerdy personality. We bonded over our mutual love for Wes Anderson movies and our shared disdain for pineapple on pizza, a deal breaker in my book. We messaged back and forth for a few days, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. He was witty, intelligent, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. He asked about my work, my hobbies, my family, and my dreams. It was a stark contrast to the usual superficial banter I had experienced on other dating apps. I found myself looking forward to his messages and feeling a genuine connection with him. After a week of chatting, Liam suggested we meet up for coffee. I was hesitant at first. I've been burned before, lured in by charming online personas only to be met with disappointment in person. But something about Liam felt different. He seemed genuine and down-to-earth, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we had a real connection. So I agreed. We decided to meet at a cozy cafe in my neighborhood, a place known for its delicious lattes and its relaxed atmosphere. I arrived a few minutes early, feeling a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. I scanned the cafe, trying to spot Liam among the other patrons, and then I saw him. He was even more attractive in person than in his photos. He had kind eyes, a warm smile, and a disarming sense of humor. We greeted each other with an awkward hug, and I immediately felt at ease. We ordered our coffees and settled into a comfortable corner of the cafe. The conversation was even better in person. We talked about everything and nothing, laughing and sharing stories like we had known each other for years. He was attentive, engaging, and genuinely interested in what I had to say. I found myself completely captivated by him, forgetting all my anxieties and insecurities. After a couple of hours, we decided to take a walk through the park across the street. The weather was perfect, the sun was shining, and the air was crisp. We strolled along the winding paths, enjoying the scenery and continuing our conversation. We talked about our families, our past relationships, and our hopes for the future. It felt like we were building a real connection, a foundation for something meaningful. As we walked deeper into the park, the crowds began to thin out. We found ourselves on a secluded path, surrounded by trees and foliage. It was quiet and peaceful, a welcome escape from the hustle and bustle of the city. Liam stopped walking and turned to face me. He took my hands in his and looked into my eyes. "I'm really glad I met you," he said, his voice soft and sincere. "I feel like we have something special." I smiled, my heart fluttering. "Me too," I said. "I really like you, Liam." He leaned in and kissed me. It was a gentle, tender kiss, full of warmth and affection. I closed my eyes and savored the moment, feeling a surge of happiness wash over me. It felt like a scene from a romantic movie, a perfect beginning to a perfect relationship. But then, things took a turn. As we broke the kiss, I noticed a strange expression on Liam's face. His eyes were wide and unfocused, and his smile had vanished. He seemed to be staring at something behind me, something that had caught his attention. "What's wrong?" I asked, feeling a knot of anxiety tighten in my stomach. He didn't answer. He just kept staring, his eyes darting back and forth like he was trying to make sense of something. I turned around to see what he was looking at, but there was nothing there. Just trees and bushes and the occasional squirrel scampering by. "Liam," I said, my voice laced with concern. "What is it?" He blinked a few times, as if snapping out of a trance. He shook his head and forced a smile. "Sorry," he said. "I just thought I saw something." "What did you see?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. "It was nothing," he said. "Just a shadow. My eyes are playing tricks on me." I didn't believe him. He seemed genuinely shaken, like he had witnessed something disturbing. But I didn't press the issue. I didn't want to ruin the mood. We continued our walk, but the atmosphere had changed. The lightness and joy that had filled the air were gone, replaced by a sense of unease and apprehension. As we walked, Liam became increasingly distant and withdrawn. He stopped making eye contact, and his conversation became stilted and awkward. He seemed preoccupied, lost in his own thoughts. I tried to engage him, to bring him back to the present moment, but nothing seemed to work. We reached the edge of the park, and Liam abruptly stopped walking. "I have to go," he said, his voice flat and emotionless. "I have something I need to take care of." "What?" I said, my heart sinking. "But we were having such a good time. Can't you stay a little longer?" "I can't," he said. "I'm sorry." He turned and walked away, leaving me standing alone in the park, feeling confused and rejected. I watched him disappear into the crowd, wondering what had just happened. Had I done something wrong? Had I said something to offend him? Or was he just not as into me as I thought he was? I walked home feeling dejected and disappointed. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that Liam was hiding something from me. I replayed the events of the day in my mind, searching for clues, trying to make sense of his sudden change in behavior. When I got home, I went straight to my computer and did some research on Liam. I searched his name on Google, hoping to find some answers. And that's when I stumbled upon a news article that sent a chill down my spine. The article was about a series of unsolved disappearances in my city. Young women who had vanished without a trace, leaving behind no clues or leads. The article mentioned that the police were investigating a potential serial killer, someone who was preying on vulnerable women. As I read the article, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. One of the victims was described as having met a man on a dating app, a man who had charmed her with his wit and intelligence before disappearing with her. The description matched Liam perfectly. I scrolled through the article, searching for more details, and then I saw it, a sketch of the suspect based on eyewitness accounts. The sketch was grainy and indistinct, but it bore a striking resemblance to Liam. I slammed my laptop shut, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. The strange expression on Liam's face, his sudden withdrawal, his abrupt departure, it all made sense now. He had seen something in the park, something that had triggered him, something that had reminded him of his dark secret. I was terrified. I had been on a date with a potential serial killer, someone who could have easily become my next victim. I had trusted him, opened myself up to him, and nearly fallen under his spell. I had been so close to becoming another statistic, another name on a list of missing women. I called the police and reported my suspicions. I told them everything I knew about Liam, including his name, his appearance, and his last known location. They took my report seriously and launched an investigation. A few days later, the police arrested Liam. They found evidence in his apartment linking him to the disappearances, including photos of the victims and a collection of disturbing objects. He was charged with multiple counts of murder and kidnapping. I was relieved that he had been caught, but I was also haunted by the experience. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been incredibly naive, that I had almost made a fatal mistake. I deleted my Hinge account and vowed never to use dating apps again. The encounter with Liam changed me. It made me more cautious, more skeptical, and more aware of the dangers that lurk beneath the surface of everyday life. It taught me that appearances can be deceiving, and that even the most charming and seemingly normal people can be hiding dark secrets. It showed me that sometimes the person you think you know is actually a monster in disguise. I'll never forget the day I swiped right and stumbled into a rabbit hole of deception and obsession. It was the day I learned a valuable lesson about trusting my gut, something I'd always prided myself on, but somehow managed to ignore in the face of expertly crafted online persona. I was fresh out of a long-term relationship, and Hinge seemed like the perfect way to ease back into the dating scene. Minimal effort, curated profiles, and the promise of designed to be deleted. What could go wrong? His name was Alex, and his profile was effortlessly charming. Pictures of him hiking scenic trails, volunteering at an animal shelter, and laughing with friends at a brewery. His prompts were witty and self-deprecating, painting a picture of a guy who was adventurous, kind, and not afraid to poke fun at himself. He was exactly my type, outdoorsy, intelligent, and seemingly genuine. We matched instantly, and the conversation flowed easily. He asked thoughtful questions about my interests and passions, sharing his own stories and experiences with an endearing enthusiasm. He seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me, not just trying to impress me with superficial charm. We talked for a week before agreeing to meet for coffee. He suggested a local cafe known for its cozy atmosphere and excellent brews. When I arrived, he was already there, waiting at a table by the window. He looked even better in person, radiating a warmth and charisma that instantly put me at ease. The date was perfect. We talked for hours about everything and nothing, laughing and sharing stories like old friends. He was attentive, engaging, and genuinely interested in what I had to say. I left the cafe feeling like I had finally met someone special, someone who truly saw me for who I was. We went on several more dates over the next few weeks, each one as magical as the first. We explored local parks, visited museums, and cooked dinner together at my apartment. He was always thoughtful and considerate, bringing flowers, remembering small details, and making me feel like I was the most important person in the world. I was falling hard and fast. He was everything I had ever wanted in a partner, and I couldn't believe my luck. But then, subtle cracks started to appear in the carefully constructed facade. Little inconsistencies in his stories, moments of unexplained absence, and a growing possessiveness that felt both flattering and unsettling. He started calling and texting more frequently, wanting to know where I was, who I was with, and what I was doing. He would get subtly jealous when I mentioned spending time with friends or family, hinting that he wanted to be the only person in my life. I initially brushed it off as a sign of his affection, a way of showing that he cared deeply about me. But as the possessiveness intensified, my gut started to churn with unease. I tried to talk to him about it, gently expressing my need for space and independence, but he would dismiss my concerns, accusing me of being distant and uncaring. He would turn the conversation around, making me feel guilty for not appreciating his devotion. One evening, I was supposed to meet him for dinner, but I had to cancel at the last minute due to a work emergency. I called him to explain, apologizing profusely and promising to make it up to him. He was strangely calm on the phone, but when I got home later that night, I found a series of angry text messages waiting for me. He accused me of lying, of deliberately trying to avoid him, and of not valuing our relationship. I was shocked and hurt by his accusations. I tried to explain again, but he refused to listen, bombarding me with insults and accusations until I finally hung up, exhausted and frustrated. I spent the rest of the night crying, wondering if I had made a mistake in trusting him so completely. The next morning, I woke up to find a barrage of missed calls and text messages from him. He was begging for forgiveness, saying he didn't mean what he said, and that he was just scared of losing me. He promised to change, to be less demanding and more understanding. Against my better judgment, I decided to give him another chance. I told myself that everyone makes mistakes and that he deserved the opportunity to prove himself. But the possessiveness didn't stop. It only intensified. He started showing up unannounced at my apartment, wanting to surprise me with gifts or take me out for spontaneous dates. He would constantly check my phone when I wasn't looking, scrolling through my contacts and messages. He even started following me on social media, scrutinizing every post, comment, and like. I felt trapped, suffocated by his constant attention and control. I knew I had to end things, but I was afraid of how he would react. He had become so emotionally volatile, so unpredictable, that I feared what he might do if I rejected him. I confided in a close friend, telling her everything that had been happening. She was horrified and urged me to break up with him immediately, offering to be there for support and protection. With my friend's encouragement, I finally mustered the courage to end the relationship. I met Alex at a public park, choosing a location where I felt safe and in control. I told him calmly and firmly that I couldn't continue the relationship, that his possessiveness was suffocating me, and that we were not a good match. He initially tried to argue, pleading with me to reconsider, but when he realized I was serious, his demeanor changed. His eyes turned cold, and his voice became menacing. He accused me of leading him on, of playing with his emotions, and of ruining his life. He said that I would regret my decision, that no one else would ever love me as much as he did, and that I would end up alone and miserable. I stood my ground, refusing to engage in his emotional manipulation. I told him that I deserved to be happy, and that I couldn't be happy with someone who tried to control me. I turned to walk away, but he grabbed my arm, his grip tight and painful. He wouldn't let go, continuing to rant and rave, drawing the attention of other people in the park. I was terrified, feeling trapped and helpless. Finally, a group of concerned citizens intervened, pulling him away from me and calling the police. He was arrested for assault, and I was finally free. The aftermath was difficult. I had to file a restraining order against him, fearing that he would try to retaliate. I went to therapy to process the trauma of the relationship and to learn how to recognize red flags in future partners. I realized that I had ignored my gut instincts, blinded by his charm and attention, and that I had allowed myself to be manipulated and controlled. I learned a valuable lesson that day about the importance of self-respect, boundaries, and trusting my intuition. I realized that I deserved to be with someone who valued my independence, respected my boundaries, and supported my growth, not someone who tried to possess and control me. It was a painful and difficult experience, but it made me stronger, wiser, and more resilient. I'm now much more cautious with dating and meeting people online. I have more expectations and pay closer attention to the small things. I'm not going to let myself go down that road ever again. Now, years later, I'm happily married to a kind, supportive, and loving partner. We met through a mutual friend, and from the very beginning, he treated me with respect and admiration. He values my independence, supports my dreams, and never tries to control me. He is the antithesis of Alex, the man who taught me the hard way that sometimes the most charming facades hide the darkest intentions. Hinge, the dating app that brands itself as designed to be deleted. Yeah, right. More like designed to slowly erode your sanity and make you question every decision you've ever made, especially the one that led you to create a profile in the first place. I downloaded it a few months after my last relationship imploded. You know the drill. Mutual friends pushing you to get back out there. The hollow ache of loneliness on Friday nights, and the constant feeling that everyone else is moving forward while you're stuck in neutral. Hinge seemed like the least offensive of the dating apps. No endless swiping, just carefully curated profiles with prompts and a few photos. Seemed civilized. That's how I met Liam. His profile was intriguing. Not conventionally handsome, but with kind eyes and a wry smile. His prompts were thoughtful, funny even. My most irrational fear is pigeons conspiring against humanity. I laughed. It was a genuine laugh, not the performative chuckle I usually reserve for bad jokes on dates. He seemed normal, which, let's be honest, is a rare find in the online dating wasteland. We matched, and the conversation flowed easily. He wasn't pushy, didn't send creepy pickup lines, and actually seemed interested in getting to know me. We talked about our jobs, our families, our favorite books, the usual getting to know you stuff. He was a graphic designer, loved hiking, and had a rescue dog named Sherlock. Perfect, right? After a week of chatting, we decided to meet for coffee. He suggested a small, independent cafe near my apartment. Again, seemed like a good sign. No pressure, no expectations, just coffee. He was even better in person. Witty, intelligent, and genuinely engaging. We talked for hours, completely losing track of time. The conversation ranged from existential philosophy to the merits of different types of cheese. I felt a connection, a spark, something I hadn't felt in a long time. We went on a few more dates. A movie, a hike with Sherlock, dinner at a cozy Italian restaurant. Each date was better than the last. He was attentive, respectful, and incredibly easy to be around. I started to let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this could be something real. Then, the little things started. Subtle inconsistencies in his stories. He'd mention a detail about his childhood that contradicted something he'd said earlier, or he'd forget a movie we'd talked about just days before. At first, I brushed it off as simple forgetfulness. Everyone makes mistakes, right? But then they became more frequent, more noticeable. He told me he had a sister, then later said he was an only child. He claimed to have graduated from a prestigious university, but couldn't recall his major. He'd sometimes stare blankly during conversations, as if he were trying to remember who I was or what we were talking about. I started to feel uneasy. Something wasn't adding up. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was just nervous, trying too hard to impress me. Maybe he had a bad memory. Maybe I was overthinking things, letting my past relationship baggage cloud my judgment. But the feeling persisted, a nagging sense that something was fundamentally wrong. Then came the night. He called me by the wrong name. We were having dinner at my apartment. I'd cooked his favorite meal, lasagna, and we were sitting on the couch, watching a movie. It was a perfect, cozy night, or so I thought. In the middle of a particularly dramatic scene, he turned to me, took my hand, and said, "I love you, Sarah." My name is Emily. The blood drained from my face. He immediately realized his mistake, his eyes widening in horror. "Oh my God, Emily, I am so sorry. I don't know why I said that. It just slipped out." I was stunned, speechless. Who was Sarah? Why did he say he loved her? I tried to play it cool, to brush it off as a simple slip of the tongue. But the damage was done. The perfect facade had cracked, revealing something unsettling beneath the surface. "Who is Sarah?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He stammered, his face flushed. "No one. Just an old friend. It was a long time ago." I didn't believe him. The rest of the evening was awkward and strained. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something, that the man I thought I knew was a carefully constructed illusion. After he left, I did what any sane person would do. I started Googling. I searched his name, his job, anything I could find. And that's when I stumbled upon it. An obituary. Sarah Miller. Died tragically in a car accident 5 years ago. Beloved daughter, sister, and fiancée. The photo accompanying the obituary was unmistakable. It was the same woman Liam had called me. The woman he claimed was just an old friend. My heart pounded in my chest. I felt sick to my stomach. What was going on? I dug deeper. I scoured social media, online forums, anything that might shed light on Liam and Sarah. And that's when I found the forum, a support group for people who had lost loved ones. And there, buried deep within the forum, was a post from Liam. He described his grief, his pain, his inability to move on after Sarah's death. He talked about how he missed her, how he still saw her everywhere, how he felt like he was living in a dream. And then he wrote something that made my blood run cold. "I'm trying to find her again. I know she's out there, somewhere. I just need to find the right face, the right voice, the right vessel." Vessel. I closed my laptop, my hand shaking. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was trapped in a horror movie. Was he trying to replace Sarah? Was he trying to recreate her in me? Was he insane? I knew I had to get away. I couldn't stay in my apartment, not knowing what he was capable of. I packed a bag, grabbed my keys, and ran. I went to my best friend's house, told her everything. She was horrified, urging me to go to the police. But I was scared, confused. I didn't know what to do. The next day, I went back to my apartment to gather the rest of my belongings. As I walked through the door, I noticed something was off. The air was still, heavy with an unsettling silence. A vase was on the floor. The front door had not been forced open. I had simply left it unlocked in my haste. Then I saw him. He was sitting on my couch, in the dark, holding a photo of Sarah. He looked up, his eyes filled with a strange mixture of sadness and desperation. "Emily," he said, his voice soft, almost pleading. "I just want her back." I froze, paralyzed with fear. He stood up, slowly, and took a step towards me. "You remind me so much of her," he said. "You have her eyes, her smile, I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest. "Stay away from me," I managed to say, my voice trembling. He didn't listen. He kept coming closer, his eyes fixed on me, a manic gleam in their depths. "I can make you her," he whispered. "I can bring her back." I knew I had to do something. I reached into my purse, fumbling for my pepper spray. He lunged forward, grabbing my arm. I screamed and sprayed the pepper spray in his face. He recoiled, clutching his eyes, screaming in pain. I didn't hesitate. I ran out of the apartment and didn't stop running until I reached the police station. They arrested him. He was charged with stalking and assault. He's currently undergoing psychiatric evaluation. I don't know what will happen to him. I don't know if he'll ever be truly held accountable for what he did. But I do know this: I'll never use Hinge again. Or any dating app, for that matter. The search for love isn't worth risking your life. Some connections are better left unmade. Some doors are better left unopened. And some people are better left undisturbed in the darkness of their own delusions. I still see Sarah's face sometimes in my dreams. And I still hear Liam's voice, whispering in the back of my mind. I can make you her. I hope he never finds another vessel. I hope he never finds another victim. I hope he rots. I'm seeing a therapist now, trying to process what happened, trying to move on. It's not easy. The scars are deep, but I'm alive. And that's all that matters. Designed to be deleted? More like designed to scar you for life. I keep replaying it in my head. The choices I made, the things I ignored, the way I talked myself out of that nagging feeling in my gut. If I hadn't trusted my instincts that day, well, maybe I wouldn't be here, trying to piece together what happened. Maybe I'd be blissfully ignorant, swiping through Hinge with the naive optimism I used to have. Hinge. It always marketed itself as the dating app designed to be deleted. A place for meaningful connections, or so the ads claimed. I was in a vulnerable place, fresh out of a long-term relationship, and wanting something real, something lasting. I was tired of the fleeting encounters from other apps, the endless stream of faces with nothing behind them. Hinge seemed different, more curated, more intentional. I should have known better. His profile was intriguing. Liam, early 30s, liked hiking, indie music, and craft beer. His pictures showed him smiling on mountaintops, strumming a guitar at a campfire, and raising a glass in a cozy-looking pub. He seemed outdoorsy, creative, and genuinely happy. His prompts were thoughtful, not the usual surface-level responses you see on dating apps. One prompt asked, "What's your unpopular opinion?" His answer, "Pineapple belongs on pizza, and I'll fight anyone who says otherwise." It made me laugh. Another prompt was, "I'm convinced that." And he replied, "There's more good in the world than bad. You just have to look for it." It seemed earnest, optimistic, exactly what I was looking for. We matched, and the conversation flowed easily. He asked about my interests, my job, my family. He listened attentively, responding with thoughtful questions and genuine interest. He wasn't pushy or overly complimentary. He just seemed normal, refreshingly so. We talked about our favorite hiking trails, our shared love of obscure bands, and our dreams for the future. He even shared some personal stories about his childhood and his struggles with anxiety. He was opening up, showing vulnerability. I felt like I was connecting with him on a deeper level. After a week of messaging, he suggested we meet up. He proposed a hike on a local trail, followed by lunch at a nearby cafe. It sounded perfect, outdoorsy, casual, and low pressure. I agreed, feeling a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. I told a few friends about the date, shared his picture, and made sure they knew where I was going and when I expected to be back. Standard safety precautions. The day of the hike dawned bright and sunny. I packed a backpack with water, snacks, and sunscreen, and headed to the trailhead. Liam was already there when I arrived, leaning against his car, smiling. He looked even more attractive in person, his eyes sparkling in the sunlight. He greeted me with a warm hug, and we started up the trail. The hike was beautiful. The trail wound through a lush forest, with stunning views of the surrounding mountains. We talked easily, sharing stories and laughing. He was charming, witty, and engaging. He seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. He even pointed out some local flora and fauna, showing off his knowledge of nature. I was starting to feel like this could be something special. About halfway through the hike, we reached a secluded overlook. The view was breathtaking. We sat down on a rock, taking in the scenery. He turned to me, his eyes intense. "This is amazing," he said softly. "I'm so glad I met you." He reached out and took my hand. I smiled, feeling a flutter of butterflies in my stomach. And that's when things started to shift. His grip on my hand tightened, becoming almost painful. His eyes, which had been so warm and inviting, now seemed different. Cold, calculating. He leaned in closer, his face just inches from mine. "You're so beautiful," he whispered, his voice raspy. "I've been watching you for a long time." The words sent a shiver down my spine. Watching me? What did he mean? I tried to pull my hand away, but his grip was too strong. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice trembling. His smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I've been following you," he said. "I know where you live, where you work, where you go for coffee. I know everything about you." My heart pounded in my chest. This wasn't a date. This was a nightmare. I tried to stay calm, to think rationally. "Let go of me," I said, my voice firm despite my fear. "I'm going to call the police." He laughed, a cold, chilling sound. "The police can't help you here," he said. "We're alone. No one can hear you scream." I knew I had to get away. I kicked him in the shin hard. He grunted in pain, momentarily loosening his grip. I yanked my hand free and scrambled to my feet. "Stay away from me," I yelled, backing away. He lunged at me, grabbing my arm. I screamed, thrashing wildly. He was stronger than I thought. He dragged me towards the edge of the overlook. I could see the steep drop-off below, the jagged rocks and the dense forest. "I just wanted to be with you," he said, his voice pleading. "Why are you making this so difficult?" I knew I had to fight, to do whatever it took to survive. I remembered a self-defense move I had learned in a class years ago. I twisted my body, using his momentum against him, and slammed my elbow into his face. He stumbled backward, clutching his nose. I didn't wait. I turned and ran, sprinting down the trail as fast as I could. I didn't look back. I just ran, my lungs burning, my legs aching. I could hear him behind me, yelling, cursing. I ran until I reached the parking lot, where I collapsed, gasping for breath. I fumbled for my phone, my hand shaking, and called 911. The police arrived quickly, sirens blaring. I told them everything that had happened. They searched for Liam, but he was gone, vanished into the forest. They took me to the police station, where I gave a statement and looked through mugshots. I identified Liam immediately. His real name was David Miller, and he had a history of stalking and harassment. He had been using a fake name and profile on Hinge to lure women into meeting him. The police issued a warrant for his arrest, but they haven't found him yet. He's still out there, somewhere. And I'm still haunted by what happened that day. I deleted Hinge, of course. I can't even think about dating apps without feeling a surge of anxiety. I've been going to therapy, trying to process the trauma. It's been difficult, but I'm slowly starting to heal. But the question that keeps replaying in my head is, what if? What if I hadn't trusted my instincts that day? What if I had ignored that nagging feeling in my gut and dismissed it as paranoia? What if I hadn't fought back? I don't know what would have happened, and I don't want to know. I'm just grateful to be alive. I'm grateful that I listened to my intuition, even though it was almost too late. Now, I see danger everywhere. Every man I meet, I can't help but be suspicious. I try to find the warning signs. I'm hyper-aware of my surroundings. It's exhausting, but it's also necessary. I refuse to be a victim again. I may never fully trust another person again, but I'm learning to trust myself. I'm learning to listen to my inner voice, the one that whispers warnings when something feels wrong, because that voice saved my life. So, if you're using dating apps, please be careful. Don't ignore your instincts. Don't dismiss red flags. Trust your gut, even if it seems irrational. It could be the difference between life and death. Some people are not who they seem. Some people prey on others in vulnerable states. Some people are capable of unimaginable darkness. Be safe out there. You never know who's on the other side of that screen. It started like any other Hinge success story. I was, let's say, consciously single. Actively not looking, but also actively swiping in those idle moments. Waiting for the train, procrastinating on work. You know the drill. Hinge was my app of choice because it felt a little less random than Tinder. The most compatible algorithm gave me the illusion of curated connection, even though I knew it was just data and clever marketing. Anyway, his profile was intriguing. Liam, a photographer. Moody black and white photos of landscapes. A picture of him petting a stray cat. A prompt answer about his favorite thing to do on a Sunday morning that involved books, bad coffee, and the sound of rain. I liked it. It felt authentic, not trying too hard. I sent him a comment about the cat photo. Something witty, I thought. He responded quickly, and we started chatting. Liam was charming, intelligent, and surprisingly vulnerable for a guy on a dating app. We talked about our families, our fears, our creative aspirations. He wasn't afraid to be honest about his struggles with anxiety and the pressures of making a living as an artist. I appreciated that openness. It felt like we were building a genuine connection, not just trading superficial pleasantries. We met for coffee a few days later. He was even more attractive in person, tall, with kind eyes and a disarming smile. We talked for hours, easily losing track of time. It felt effortless, like we had known each other for years. I walked home with that giddy feeling of possibility, the butterflies fluttering in my stomach. This could be something, I thought. This could be really good. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. We went on dates to art galleries, independent movie theaters, and hole-in-the-wall restaurants. We spent hours talking, laughing, and sharing our lives. He introduced me to his friends, and I introduced him to mine. Everyone seemed to like him. He fit in seamlessly. He was attentive, thoughtful, and incredibly romantic. He'd leave little notes on my doorstep, send me playlists of songs that reminded him of me, and surprise me with small, meaningful gifts. He made me feel seen, appreciated, and understood. I was falling hard. Then, the little things started. Subtle inconsistencies, fleeting moments that didn't quite add up. He'd tell me stories about his childhood that seemed to contradict each other. He'd get strangely defensive when I asked about his family. He'd sometimes disappear for hours without explanation, only to reappear with vague apologies and a sheepish smile. I tried to brush it off, telling myself I was being paranoid, that I was overthinking things. But the unease persisted, a nagging feeling that something wasn't right. I decided to do some digging. I know. It's not the most mature or healthy thing to do, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to know more. I started with a simple Google search. Liam, his last name. Nothing. No social media profiles, no professional websites, no articles or mentions anywhere. It was like he didn't exist. That was odd, especially for a photographer trying to build a career. I dug deeper. I tried different variations of his name, searched for his photography under different keywords, even tried reverse image, searching his profile pictures. Still nothing. It was like he had deliberately scrubbed his entire online presence. That raised a huge red flag. I confronted him about it one night. We were having dinner at my apartment, and I tried to bring it up casually. Hey, I was trying to find your photography online the other day, but I couldn't find anything. Do you have a website or anything? He got visibly uncomfortable. He fidgeted in his seat, avoided eye contact. Oh yeah, I'm not really big on social media, he said, his voice strained. I prefer to keep my work private. It's more authentic that way, you know. I pressed him further. But wouldn't it help your career to have an online portfolio? How do people find your work? He became defensive. Look, I don't need your advice on how to run my career. I'm doing just fine. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. I think I should go. He stormed out of my apartment, leaving me stunned and confused. I tried calling him, but he didn't answer. I sent him a text, apologizing for pushing him too hard. He didn't respond. I didn't hear from him for 3 days. I was a mess, agonizing over what I had done wrong, wondering if I had ruined everything. Then, late one night, I got a text from him. Can we talk? I agreed to meet him at a park near my apartment. He was waiting for me when I arrived, sitting on a bench in the shadows. He looked tired and worn, his eyes haunted. He started talking without preamble. I need to tell you something, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Something about my past. He told me a story that was so bizarre, so outlandish, that I almost didn't believe it. He said he wasn't who he claimed to be, that Liam wasn't his real name, that he was living under an assumed identity. He said he had been involved in something terrible years ago, something he couldn't talk about without putting me in danger. He said he had run away, changed his name, and tried to start a new life. but he was always looking over his shoulder, afraid of being discovered. He said he had fallen in love with me, but he knew he couldn't be with me, not without risking everything. He said he had to leave, to disappear again, to protect me. I was speechless. I didn't know what to say, what to think. I felt betrayed, confused, and terrified. Was he telling the truth? Was he a criminal? Was I in danger? He stood up, took my hand, and kissed me on the forehead. "Goodbye," he said, his eyes filled with tears. And then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. I stood there for a long time, watching him go, my mind reeling. I didn't know what to do. I considered calling the police, but I had no proof of anything. All I had was his word, and I didn't know if I could trust him. I went home and spent the next few days in a state of shock. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think straight. I felt like my entire world had been turned upside down. I eventually decided to do some more digging, to try to find out the truth about Liam's past. I hired a private investigator, someone discreet and experienced. I gave him everything I knew: Liam's name, his photos, his story. A week later, the investigator called me with some disturbing news. He had found Liam, or rather, he had found someone who matched his description. A man who had been wanted by the police for years in connection with a series of unsolved disappearances. The man's real name was a different name, and he was suspected of being a serial killer. The investigator had found evidence linking him to several victims, all young women who had disappeared without a trace. I was horrified. I couldn't believe I had been dating a potential serial killer. I felt sick to my stomach. I immediately went to the police and told them everything I knew. The police launched a manhunt for his real name. They tracked him across several states, following a trail of false identities and dead ends. But they never caught him. He disappeared again, vanished into thin air. To this day, he is still at large, and I am still haunted by the memory of Liam, the charming photographer I met on Hinge. I often wonder if he is still out there, preying on unsuspecting women, using his charm and vulnerability to lure them into his trap. I have since deleted Hinge and all other dating apps. I can't bring myself to trust anyone I meet online. The experience has left me scarred, forever wary of the dangers that lurk beneath the surface of seemingly normal people. My heart still races when I remember his touch, his words, his eyes. How easily I could have become another victim. How close I came to disappearing forever. Hinge might be convenient, but it's just not worth the risk. It has made me who I am and shaped me in a way no other trauma has. Okay, so this is hard to write, even now. It happened maybe 6 months ago, and I still get this cold, prickly feeling whenever I think about it too much. I'd been on Hinge for a while, like a year, maybe more. It's the dating app one always come back to because it feels, I don't know, less trashy than Tinder. I mean, people actually try to have conversations on there, you know? I wasn't looking for anything super serious, just someone to grab dinner with, maybe catch a movie. The usual. I matched with this guy, Liam. His profile was pretty normal, a few decent pictures, a witty bio about his love for hiking and bad puns. We started chatting, and he seemed nice. Actually nice. He asked about my job, my hobbies, my family. He even remembered little details from previous conversations. It was refreshing, honestly. After a week or so of talking, we decided to meet up. He suggested this little Italian place near my apartment. I checked him out on social media. Normal. The date was fine. Liam was a little quieter in person than he was online, but not in a bad way. He was polite, asked good questions, and seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. We talked for hours, about everything from our favorite books to our biggest fears. He didn't try to touch me or pressure me to go back to his place or anything. It was honestly the most normal, uneventful date I'd had in months. I wasn't blown away, but I wasn't turned off either. We exchanged numbers, and he texted me later that night to say he had a good time and would like to see me again. I said yes. We went on a few more dates over the next couple of weeks. Each date was pretty much the same as the first. Pleasant conversation, no pressure, no red flags. He'd always walk me to my door, give me a quick hug, and that was it. I started to think that maybe, just maybe, I'd actually found a decent guy on a dating app. I even started telling my friends about him. That's when things started to get weird. It started small. Liam would text me at odd hours, like 3 or 4 in the morning, just saying, "Hey, are you up?" I'd usually ignore them, figuring he was just a night owl, but it still felt a little off. Then, he started showing up in places I hadn't told him I'd be. One afternoon, I went to my favorite coffee shop to get some work done. I was sitting at a table, headphones on, when I looked up and saw Liam standing there, smiling at me. He said he just happened to be in the area and thought he'd say hi. It was weird, but I brushed it off. Another time, I went to a yoga class with a friend. After class, as we were walking out, Liam was standing outside the studio. He said he was waiting for a friend, but his friend never showed up. He just walked with us for a few blocks, then said goodbye. It was getting creepy, but I still didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe he really was just a little clingy. I decided to talk to him about it. The next time we went out, I brought it up. I told him that I appreciated him wanting to spend time with me, but that I also needed my space. I explained that showing up unannounced made me uncomfortable. He seemed genuinely apologetic. He said he didn't realize he was being so overbearing and that he would try to be more mindful of my boundaries. I wanted to believe him, but then it got worse. One night, I was home alone watching a movie. I got a text from Liam that said, "I can see you." I froze. My heart started pounding. I looked around my apartment, but everything seemed normal. I texted him back, "What are you talking about?" He didn't respond. I got up and locked all my doors and windows. I turned off all the lights and peeked through the blinds. I didn't see anything. I was starting to panic. A few minutes later, I got another text from him. "You look cute in that sweater." I was wearing an old, oversized sweater that I usually only wore around the house. There was no way he could have known what I was wearing unless he was watching me. I called the police. They came and searched my apartment, but they didn't find anything. They said it was probably just a prank, that I shouldn't worry too much. But I was terrified. I stayed at a friend's house that night. The next day, I went to the police station to file a report. I showed them the texts from Liam. They said they would look into it, but that there wasn't much they could do without more evidence. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I blocked Liam on my phone and on all social media. I changed my passwords. I even considered moving. A few days went by, and I didn't hear from him. I started to feel a little bit better. Maybe he'd finally gotten the message. But then, one evening, as I was walking home from work, I saw him. He was standing across the street, leaning against a lamppost. He was staring right at me. I froze. I didn't know what to do. He started walking towards me. I turned and ran. I ran as fast as I could, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't look back. I made it to my apartment building and buzzed myself in. I ran up the stairs to my apartment and locked the door behind me. I peeked through the peephole. Liam was standing in the hallway, staring at my door. I called the police again. This time, they took it more seriously. They came and arrested Liam. It turned out that Liam had been stalking me for weeks. He had been using hidden cameras and tracking devices to follow my every move. He had even hacked into my phone and computer. The police found all sorts of disturbing things on his devices, including photos and videos of me that I had no idea existed. I was terrified and disgusted. How could someone I had trusted so completely turn out to be such a monster? Liam was charged with stalking, harassment, and invasion of privacy. He was eventually convicted and sentenced to several years in prison. Even though he's behind bars, I still have nightmares. I'm constantly looking over my shoulder, afraid that he'll somehow find a way to get to me. I have cameras set up in my apartment, and I never go anywhere alone. I haven't been on a dating app since. I don't know if I ever will be again. The experience has completely shattered my trust in people. It's hard to believe that someone you meet online could be capable of such evil. The worst part is, there were no obvious red flags. Liam seemed like a normal, decent guy. That's what makes it so scary. You never really know who someone is, especially when you meet them online. I'm still trying to heal from this experience. It's going to take a long time, maybe forever, to fully recover. But I'm determined to move on with my life and not let Liam's actions define me. It changed how I am. I do not go out alone. I ask friends to walk me home. Even though I feel safe, I still get that feeling. It's like it never ended. I'm not usually one to spill my guts online, but this Hinge experience was just something else. Like truly messed up. And the worst part? It started out so normal. I swear, if you'd asked me a month ago if I believed in the whole online dating horror story thing, I would have rolled my eyes. Now, I'm pretty sure I'm living one. It all started, as these things do, with a swipe. I'd been on Hinge for maybe a few weeks, mostly just bored and scrolling through profiles during my lunch breaks. You know the drill: witty prompts, carefully curated photos, the occasional red flag disguised as a personality quirk. I'd been on a couple of okay dates, nothing spectacular, but nothing terrible either. Just the usual awkward small talk and forced laughter. Then I saw his profile. Liam. He was different. Not in a flashy, attention-grabbing way, but in a subtle, intriguing way. His photos weren't the typical gym selfies or group shots with friends. They were mostly candid shots of him doing everyday things, reading in a coffee shop, walking his dog in the park, sketching in a notebook. He looked genuine, and his prompts were actually thoughtful, not just generic answers designed to appeal to the masses. One of them asked, "What's a hill you're willing to die on?" And he responded with, "Pineapple belongs on pizza, and anyone who disagrees is objectively wrong." I even laughed out loud at that one. I sent him a like, commenting on his pineapple stance. He replied almost immediately, and we started chatting. And unlike most Hinge conversations, which tend to fizzle out after a few messages, ours actually flowed. We talked about books, movies, music, our families, our dreams. He was intelligent, funny, and surprisingly open. He even admitted he was a bit of a nerd, which I found endearing. After a few days of chatting, he asked me out. I was hesitant at first. I'm always a bit wary of meeting people from online, especially after hearing some of the horror stories my friends have shared. But something about Liam felt different. He seemed safe. We met at a small, cozy bar near my apartment. He was even more attractive in person. He had this kind smile and eyes that seemed to crinkle at the corners when he laughed. The date was amazing. We talked for hours, completely losing track of time. It felt like we'd known each other for years. There was no awkward silence, no forced conversation, just genuine connection. At the end of the night, he walked me home and kissed me goodnight. It was perfect. We went on a few more dates over the next couple of weeks. Each one was better than the last. We went to museums, concerts, and even took a day trip to a nearby town. I was completely smitten. He was everything I'd ever wanted in a partner: kind, intelligent, funny, and genuinely interested in me. I started to let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I'd finally found the one. That's when things started to get weird. Subtle at first, almost unnoticeable. Like the way he would occasionally stare at me with this intense, almost unnerving gaze. Or the way he would ask me seemingly innocuous questions about my past, my family, my friends. At the time, I just chalked it up to him being genuinely interested in getting to know me. But looking back, I realized those were red flags. Then came the gifts. He started showering me with them. Not extravagant, expensive gifts, but small, thoughtful ones. A book by my favorite author, a vinyl record of a band I'd mentioned liking, a hand-drawn sketch of my dog. It was sweet at first, but it quickly became overwhelming. It felt like he was trying to buy my affection, or maybe even control me. One evening, he asked me about my exes. I hesitated to answer, not wanting to rehash old relationships. But he pressed me, insisting that he wanted to know everything about me. So I reluctantly told him about my past relationships, trying to keep it brief and impersonal. He listened intently, his expression unreadable. The next day, I received a strange message from an unknown number. It was a screenshot of a private message I'd sent to one of my exes years ago. A message that contained some pretty intimate details about our relationship. I was horrified. How did he get that? I confronted Liam about it, and he denied having anything to do with it. He claimed he had no idea where the message came from, but I didn't believe him. I knew he was lying. That's when I started to feel truly uneasy. I started to do some digging. I searched for him online, trying to find more information about his past. But there was almost nothing. No social media profiles, no professional website, no mention of him anywhere. It was like he didn't exist before he matched with me on Hinge. The more I dug, the more suspicious I became. I started to suspect that he wasn't who he said he was, that he was hiding something. So I did the only thing I could think of. I hired a private investigator. I know it sounds crazy, but I was genuinely scared. I needed to know the truth. A week later, the investigator came back with his findings, and what he told me sent chills down my spine. Liam wasn't his real name. His real name was Daniel, and he had a history of stalking and harassing women. He had been arrested multiple times for violating restraining orders and had even spent time in prison. I was terrified. I immediately cut off all contact with him, blocked his number, and deleted him from all my social media accounts. I changed my locks, installed a security system, and started carrying pepper spray. I was living in constant fear, convinced that he was watching me, waiting for the right moment to strike. A few days later, I found a note on my doorstep. It was a handwritten letter addressed to me. The handwriting was familiar. It was Liam's, or rather Daniel's. The letter was rambling and incoherent, filled with obsessive declarations of love and disturbing threats. He accused me of betraying him, of lying to him, of not appreciating his love. He wrote about how he knew everything about me, everything I did, everything I thought. He said he would never let me go. I immediately called the police. They took the letter as evidence and launched an investigation. They advised me to stay with a friend or family member until they could locate Daniel. I spent the next few weeks bouncing between different friends' houses, terrified to be alone. The police eventually found Daniel. He had been living in a motel a few blocks from my apartment, watching me. They arrested him and charged him with stalking and harassment. He's currently awaiting trial. I'm still dealing with the aftermath of this experience. I have nightmares, I'm constantly anxious, and I have a hard time trusting people. I deleted Hinge and don't think I'll ever use online dating again. The whole thing has left me scarred and shaken. I wanted to share my story to warn others about the dangers of online dating. You never really know who you're talking to. People can create fake profiles, hide their true identities, and manipulate you into believing they're someone they're not. It's important to be cautious, to trust your instincts, and to never ignore red flags. Looking back, I can see all the signs I missed, the warning signals I ignored. I was so blinded by the initial connection, by the romantic gestures, that I failed to see the darkness lurking beneath the surface. I learned a hard lesson, one that I hope others can learn from without having to go through what I went through. Online dating can be convenient and fun, but it's not worth risking your safety. Listen to your gut, and don't be afraid to walk away, no matter how charming someone may seem. Your safety is the most important thing, and nothing is worth risking it. Okay, so Hinge, the dating app designed to be deleted. Yeah, right. More like designed to give you a slow, creeping sense of existential dread, punctuated by the occasional fleeting moment of hope before it all comes crashing down. My story isn't one of outright danger, like some of the other dating app horror stories you hear. It's more subtle, more insidious. A slow burn of weirdness that left me questioning my own sanity and, frankly, my taste in men. It all started innocently enough. I was bored, lonely, and figured, hey, why not give it a shot? I filled out my profile, chose some vaguely witty prompts, and swiped with cautious optimism. That's when I came across Liam. His profile was intriguing. He wasn't conventionally handsome, but he had this intense, brooding look that I found oddly appealing. His photos were artsy, black and white shots of him staring off into the distance, or reading a book in some dimly lit cafe. He seemed deep, intellectual, and maybe a little bit damaged, which, I'll admit, is exactly my type. His prompts were equally cryptic. The one thing I'm overly competitive about is understanding the hidden meaning in things. And I'm looking for someone who challenges me to see the world in new ways. Okay, a little pretentious, sure, but I was willing to play along. We matched, and the conversation started flowing almost immediately. He wasn't into small talk. He wanted to discuss philosophy, the nature of reality, and the symbolism in obscure films. At first, I was impressed. Finally, someone who wanted to talk about something other than my job or my favorite Netflix show. But then the conversation started getting strange. He would ask me questions that were oddly specific and personal. Things like, what's the earliest memory you have of feeling truly alone? Or, what's the biggest secret you've ever kept from someone you loved? It felt like he was trying to dig into my soul, and honestly, a part of me kind of liked it. We talked for a couple of weeks before he suggested meeting up. He wanted to take me to this hidden gem of a bookstore he knew, followed by a walk in the park. Sounded harmless enough, right? The bookstore was definitely a hidden gem. It was tucked away on a quiet side street, filled with dusty shelves and the smell of old paper. Liam seemed right at home there, browsing through the stacks of books with a knowing smile. He recommended a few obscure titles to me, all dealing with themes of isolation, paranoia, and the fragility of the human psyche. During our walk in the park, He started telling me about his theories on conspiracy theories. He believed that everything we see and experience is carefully constructed by powerful forces, and that the truth is always hidden just beneath the surface. Again, a little out there, but I was still somewhat entertained. It wasn't until later that night, after I'd gone home, that the first real red flag popped up. I got a text from Liam that simply said, "I know what you're afraid of." I stared at my phone, my heart pounding in my chest. How could he possibly know what I was afraid of? We hadn't talked about anything that personal. I tried to brush it off as a coincidence, but the feeling of unease lingered. The next day, he started texting me about my dreams. He claimed he had a gift for interpreting dreams, and he wanted to analyze mine. I hesitantly told him about a recurring nightmare I'd been having since childhood, involving a dark forest and a faceless figure chasing me. His response was chilling. The forest represents your subconscious, and the faceless figure is the part of yourself you're afraid to confront. Okay, that was a little too accurate. It was like he had somehow tapped into my deepest fears and insecurities. I started to feel like I was losing control of the situation. Over the next few weeks, Liam's behavior became increasingly erratic. He would text me at all hours of the night, sending me cryptic messages and asking me bizarre questions. He started talking about a secret society he was a part of, a group of people who were awakened to the truth about the world. He wanted me to join, of course. He said I had a special energy and that I was destined for great things. I politely declined, telling him that I wasn't really into that kind of thing. That's when he started getting angry. He accused me of being closed-minded, of being afraid of the truth. He said I was wasting my potential and that I would regret my decision. I tried to distance myself from him, but he wouldn't let me go. He started showing up at my work, waiting for me outside my apartment. He would call and text me constantly, bombarding me with his theories and accusations. I was terrified. I felt like I was being stalked, manipulated, and gaslight all at the same time. I started having panic attacks, and I couldn't sleep at night. Finally, I decided to take action. I blocked his number, reported him to Hinge, and filed a restraining order. I changed my locks, installed security cameras, and started carrying pepper spray. It took a while, but eventually Liam faded away. He stopped contacting me, and I haven't seen him since. But the experience left a lasting impact on me. I'm still paranoid about dating apps, and I'm much more cautious about who I let into my life. Looking back, the red flags were there from the beginning. The cryptic profile, the intense conversations, the obsession with secrets and conspiracies. I ignored them because I was lonely, because I wanted to believe that I had found someone special. But sometimes, the people who seem the most intriguing are the ones you should stay away from. Sometimes, the hidden gems are just buried for a reason. And sometimes, the dating app designed to be deleted is just a gateway to a world of weirdness you're better off avoiding. The worst part is, I still find myself wondering about him sometimes. I wonder if he's still out there, trying to awaken other unsuspecting women to his twisted version of the truth. I wonder if he ever thinks about me, and if he regrets what he did. But mostly, I just wonder what it was about me that made him think I would be a good candidate for his secret society. Was it my intelligence, my vulnerability, or was it just that I was willing to listen to his crazy theories for a little bit longer than most people would? I'll probably never know the answer, and maybe that's for the best. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. Some doors are better left unopened. And some dating app profiles are just a warning sign to run as far as you can in the opposite direction. So I've always been a bit jumpy. I'm the type to check under the bed, double lock the doors, and scan the backseat of my car before driving anywhere, even during the day. I chalked it up to growing up in a city where you had to be aware of your surroundings, but honestly, it's just part of my personality. My friends tease me about it constantly, calling me Detective Riley or Paranoia Queen. I always brushed it off, figuring it's better to be safe than sorry. But then, what started as my usual paranoia became something else, something real, something I still can't quite explain, even now. It all started with Hinge. After a particularly brutal breakup, my best friend, Chloe, practically forced me to download it. I was resistant at first. I'm not a huge fan of dating apps. They always feel so superficial, but she convinced me that it would be a good way to meet new people and get my mind off things. So, I reluctantly created a profile, carefully choosing pictures that made me look somewhat approachable and writing prompts that showcased my, supposedly, witty personality. I matched with a few guys, had some boring conversations, and went on a couple of truly awful dates. Just when I was about to delete the app altogether, I came across Liam's profile. He was different. His pictures weren't the typical pose selfies or group shots with his brothers. They were candid, showing him hiking in the mountains, playing guitar by a campfire, and volunteering at an animal shelter. His prompts were thoughtful and funny, revealing a guy who was intelligent, adventurous, and genuinely kind. I was intrigued. We matched, and our conversations were effortless. We talked about everything: our favorite books, our travel dreams, our hopes for the future. He seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me, not just hooking up. After a week of chatting, we decided to meet for coffee. The date went perfectly. Liam was even more charming in person. We laughed, we shared stories, and we discovered that we had a surprising amount in common. I left the coffee shop with a flutter in my stomach and a newfound hope that maybe, just maybe, this dating app thing could actually work. We started seeing each other regularly. We went to museums, concerts, and weekend hikes. He introduced me to his friends, and I introduced him to mine. Everything felt easy, natural, and right. I was falling for him hard. But then, subtle things started happening. Little things that, at first, I dismissed as coincidences or my overactive imagination. But they kept piling up, each one more unsettling than the last. It started with the running. I'm an avid runner. It's my way to relieve stress and just be at peace. I usually ran around my neighborhood, which was very safe, and I always loved the neighborhood. One morning, as I was running my usual route, I noticed a dark car parked a block away from my apartment building. It wasn't anything special, just a generic black sedan, but something about it caught my eye. I shrugged it off and kept running. The next day, the same car was parked in the same spot, and the day after that, it became a regular fixture, always there when I went for my morning run. I started to feel uneasy. Was someone watching me? Was I being followed? I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just someone who lived in the neighborhood. Maybe they were waiting for someone. But the feeling persisted, gnawing at the back of my mind. Then there were the messages. I started receiving strange, anonymous messages on social media. They weren't threatening, exactly, but they were cryptic. Things like, "We know where you run," or "You look beautiful in the morning light." They sent chills down my spine. I blocked the accounts, but they kept popping up with different usernames. I told Liam about the car and the messages, but he dismissed them as harmless pranks. "You're just being paranoid," he said. "It's probably just some kids messing with you." I wanted to believe him, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. The final straw came one evening when I was walking home from work. It was getting dark, and I was hurrying down the street when I noticed a figure walking behind me. I glanced back and saw a man in a hooded sweatshirt, his face obscured by the shadows. I quickened my pace, and he did too. I started to panic. I ducked into a crowded coffee shop, hoping to lose him in the crowd. I sat down at a table near the window, trying to catch my breath. I scanned the street outside, but I didn't see anyone suspicious. After a few minutes, I calmed down and decided to head home. As I stepped out of the coffee shop, I saw him again. The man in the hooded sweatshirt was standing across the street, staring directly at me. I froze. Our eyes met, and I felt a jolt of pure terror. It was then I noticed the person was taking a photo of me. I didn't wait to see what he would do. I ran. I ran as fast as I could, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't stop running until I reached my apartment building, where I scrambled inside and locked the door behind me. I was shaking, breathless, and utterly terrified. I called Liam, desperate for reassurance, but he didn't answer. I left him a frantic voicemail, begging him to call me back. I wanted to think maybe he was working, but the whole day I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. As I waited for Liam to call me back, I decided to do some digging of my own. I started by Googling Liam's name, hoping to find some information that would ease my fears. What I found instead was something that shattered my world. I found articles that confirmed someone had been convicted with the name Liam in 2007. The name sounded oddly familiar. Looking at the picture, my world stopped. I frantically searched the internet for old news articles about the case, piecing together the horrifying truth. He was accused of stalking a girl. It was all over the news. I started shaking more. My blood ran cold. Liam wasn't who he said he was. He was a liar, a stalker, I was being paranoid until my paranoia was validated. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The car, the messages, the hooded figure, it all made sense. I had been right to be afraid. I just didn't know the reason why. Just then, my phone rang. It was Liam. I hesitated, my hand trembling, before answering the call. "Hey, Riley," he said, his voice smooth and calm. "Sorry I missed your call. I was in a meeting. What's up?" I took a deep breath, trying to control my voice. "Liam," I said. "Who are you, really?" There was a long pause, a silence that stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Then he spoke, his voice low and menacing. "You're smarter than I thought, Riley, but it's too late now." I hung up the phone and immediately called the police. I told them everything, the car, the messages, the hooded figure, and what I had discovered about Liam's past. They took me seriously, thank God, and dispatched officers to my apartment. As I waited for the police to arrive, I heard a noise outside my door, a faint scratching sound, like someone was trying to pick the lock. My heart leaped into my throat. I grabbed the knife from my kitchen drawer and stood behind the door, my hand shaking, my eyes wide with fear. The scratching stopped. Then I heard a whisper, just barely audible through the door. "I know you're in there, Riley, and I'm coming in." The police arrived just in time. They apprehended Liam outside my apartment building, preventing him from entering. He didn't resist arrest, but he looked at me with a chilling smile as they led him away. I haven't seen or heard from Liam since that night. He's in jail, awaiting trial on stalking and harassment charges. I'm still terrified, but I'm also relieved. I'm relieved that I trusted my instincts, that I didn't dismiss my fears as mere paranoia. I'm still jumpy, still checking under the bed and double-locking the doors. But now, I know that my paranoia isn't just a personality quirk. It's a survival mechanism. It's what kept me alive. And it all started with a swipe right on Hinge. I deleted it after finding something I wish I could unsee, unhear, unfeel. Something that still crawls under my skin years later. It was the summer after my divorce. I was in my early 30s, adrift, trying to figure out who I was without the wife label I'd worn for so long. My friends insisted I get back out there, that I needed to remember I was still desirable, still me. Reluctantly, I downloaded Hinge. I set up a profile, uploaded a few pictures I thought were flattering. A hiking shot, one with my dog, a slightly blurry one from a friend's wedding, and started swiping. The whole process felt so artificial, like I was shopping for a human being. But I told myself to keep an open mind, to give it a chance. I went on a few dates, the usual awkward small talk, forced smiles, and polite exits. Nothing clicked. I was starting to think my friends were wrong, that maybe I wasn't ready. But then I matched with Liam. His profile was different. Not in a bad way, just unique. He wasn't conventionally attractive, a little too skinny, a slightly crooked nose, but he had kind eyes and a warm smile that seemed genuine. His prompts were thoughtful, a little quirky, hinting at a deep and introspective personality. He liked obscure indie bands, old bookstores, and long walks in the rain. He seemed like the kind of person who actually felt things, which was a refreshing change from the vapid profiles I'd been seeing. We started messaging, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. We talked about everything, our favorite books, our biggest fears, our hopes for the future. He was a good listener, asking thoughtful questions and responding with genuine interest. I found myself looking forward to his messages, eager to learn more about him. After a week of chatting, we decided to meet for coffee. He suggested a small, independent cafe tucked away on a quiet side street. It was the kind of place I loved, cozy, with mismatched furniture and the smell of freshly brewed coffee hanging in the air. Liam was even more charming in person. He was a little shy at first, but he quickly warmed up, his eyes sparkling as he talked about his passion for photography. He told me about his dream of traveling the world, capturing the beauty of forgotten places and the stories of ordinary people. I was captivated. We spent hours talking, laughing, and sharing stories. It felt like we'd known each other for years. As I walked home that evening, I had a giddy feeling in my stomach, a feeling I hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe, just maybe, this was it. Maybe Hinge had actually worked. We started seeing each other regularly. We went to museums, concerts, and hiking trails. We cooked dinner at each other's apartments, talked for hours on end, and fell asleep in each other's arms. He was kind, compassionate, and understanding. He made me feel safe, loved, and appreciated. He was everything I thought I wanted. But then, things started to change. Subtle at first, barely noticeable. He started getting possessive. He wanted to know where I was at all times, who I was with, what I was doing. He'd text me constantly throughout the day, and if I didn't respond immediately, he'd get anxious and bombard me with messages. I tried to brush it off, telling myself he was just insecure, that he was afraid of losing me. But the possessiveness grew, becoming more intense and controlling. He started criticizing my friends, telling me they were a bad influence. He didn't like me going out without him, even to see my family. He also started exhibiting some strange behaviors. He'd have these intense mood swings, going from loving and affectionate to angry and withdrawn in a matter of seconds. He'd get fixated on things, obsessing over minor details and blowing them out of proportion. One night, we were at my apartment watching a movie. I got up to get a glass of water, and when I came back, he was staring intently at my phone. "Who were you texting?" he asked, his voice tight. "Just my sister," I said, trying to sound casual. He grabbed my phone and started scrolling through my messages. "Why are you hiding things from me?" he demanded. "I'm not hiding anything," I said, my voice rising. "It's my phone. I have a right to privacy." He threw my phone against the wall, shattering the screen. "You're mine," he screamed. "You belong to me." I was terrified. I'd never seen him like this before. I told him to leave, and he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I spent the rest of the night shaking, wondering what I had gotten myself into. I knew I had to end things, but I was scared. I was afraid of what he might do. The next day, I went to his apartment to break up with him in person. I thought it would be easier, more respectful. I was wrong. He was waiting for me, his eyes red and swollen. He begged me to stay, promising he'd change, that he'd get help. He cried. He pleaded. He swore he couldn't live without me. I stood my ground, telling him it was over, that I couldn't be with someone who treated me like that. He didn't take it well. He started yelling, accusing me of leading him on, of playing with his emotions. He said I was just like all the other women who had hurt him in the past. Then, he did something that still haunts me to this day. He pulled out his phone and opened his Hinge app. "You want to know why I'm like this?" he said, his voice trembling. "It's because of this damn app. It's because of all the fake people on here, all the liars and cheaters." He started scrolling through his matches, showing me the profiles of women he had dated, women he had been obsessed with. As he scrolled, I noticed something disturbing. All of the women in his matches had a photo on their profiles that contained a heart. All of them, whether it was their hands making a heart shape, a heart necklace, or heart-shaped glasses. Every woman had one. Then, he clicked on one particular profile of a woman I didn't recognize. He started zooming in on her photos, pointing out every flaw, every imperfection. "Look at her," he sneered. "She thinks she's so beautiful, but she's just a fake. She's just trying to get attention." He proceeded to tell me her full name and also where she lived. How he knew all of this personal information, I had no idea. And then he zoomed in on her. He pointed to her left eye, in extreme detail. He said, "That's her problem, see that?" "See what?" I said, confused. "The birthmark, don't you see it?" I didn't. He must have been really close, and I didn't want to make him any more angry. I wanted to get out of the apartment, but what he said next chilled me to my core. "That's how I find them, the ones with a flaw on their left eye. You see, it's a sign that they are broken. It's how I know what I can get away with. It's how I know what I can do to them." I froze, my blood running cold. I realized that this wasn't just about me. This was about all the women he had dated, all the women he had been obsessed with. He was targeting them, preying on their insecurities, manipulating them, and controlling them. And his first step in how to identify them was to look at their left eye. I was horrified. I wanted to run, but I was paralyzed with fear. I didn't know what to do. He must have seen the look on my face, because his expression softened. "I would never hurt you," he said, his voice gentle. "You're different. You're special." He reached out to touch me, but I flinched away. "Don't," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I turned and ran out of his apartment, never looking back. I went to the police, but they said there wasn't much they could do. He hadn't physically harmed me, and his behavior, while disturbing, wasn't technically illegal. I was terrified he would come after me, that he would try to hurt me. I changed my number, moved to a different city, and deleted all my social media accounts. I went into hiding. It's been years since that day, but I still think about Liam. I still wonder about the women he dated, the women he targeted. I hope they're okay. I hope they got away. And I still think about Hinge, the dating app designed to be deleted. I deleted it that day, but the memories of Liam and the horrors he revealed will never be deleted from my mind. They're etched there forever, a constant reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface, even in the most unexpected places. Now, every time someone wants to use Hinge, I warn them about my story.